Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us on our webinar Wednesday. I'm Stephen Phelps, the marketing manager for Acumen, and I'm here with the account management team, along with Todd McDaniel from Dynavistics. Today, we will be overviewing and demoing Collect It, which is an accounts receivable management software. Near the end of the demo, we will also save some time to answer a few questions, so please feel free to use the chat option during that time. And with that being said, I will let Todd begin the presentation.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning. Again, my name is Todd McDaniel, and I'm with Dynavistics. So today we're going to be going through the Collect It application, and I'll just walk you through kind of the agenda. So we're going to do a quick overview of Dynavistics as a company, and then Collect It as a specific product. And then I'll walk you through a live demo. It'll take about 20-25 minutes, and we'll have plenty of time for Q&A after that. So if there's any questions along the way, you can type them into the chat. Or you can wait for the Q&A at the end of the demo. So Dynavistics is based here in Tampa, Florida. We were established in 2007. We have over 500 customers in 15 different countries. All of our development and support is done onshore, either here in Tampa or in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where we have another office. So everything is done here. We created the Collect It product about 5 years ago, a little over 5 years ago. We have, it's a standalone application with a pre-built integration to Sage 300. We have other integrations available for other source systems for your accounts receivable data. All of our development is done in .NET with the Microsoft SQL Server as the database. And the communication in and out of Collect It can be done via email, fax, or through printed letters. So that's kind of an overview of the software and the product. I'm going to go ahead and jump over to the demo now, and we'll walk you through how Collect It works. So I'm going to start here on the home screen. The home screen allows you to create and maintain different metrics that make sense for your business. So these are just a couple that I've created for the demo. You can create different metrics. You can have different layouts and have different dashboards depending on what you want to see. So we had two basic foundations for building Collect It. The first one was we wanted it to be easy to use. So everything that you see here, you can click into. If I click into this, I get the aging. All of my grid formats within the system are customizable by the user, and they stick with the user. So if I like the total column to be out to the end here, I can move it out there. And then the next time I log in, it's going to show that grid in that format for me, where somebody else can see it some other way. All of our grid formats can be exported to Excel, as long as you have security to do exporting. We have a many-to-many reporting relationship, which allows you to set up a hierarchy between the users of who reports to who, and you can see each other's aging, task lists, and those type of things depending on the reporting relationship. Again, all of our grid formats are sortable. So if you want to see who owed you the most money in descending order, you can just click on total twice there and get it descending. They're also filterable. So in the filter, I could go in and I could say, maybe I only want to see people that owe me more than $25,000, so that I can just see that list. Helps if you have the num lock off. So then that'll filter down the list, and it'll show me that I have 17 customers for a total of $695,000. So again, this is kind of how the way credit collections used to work. Is you would run an aging, you would do some filtering, some sorting, and you would come up with a list of the customers' accounts that you wanted to look at, or that you wanted to drill into and maybe call or send them an email. But it was all very kind of, let's see what we have today and figure out where we need to go. So the second thing that we wanted to do, besides making this easy to use, is we wanted to automate a lot of those routine tasks. So if you are always want to call somebody 2 days after their due date to remind them about an invoice, or you want to send them an email, let's have the system either set up that task for you to make the call, or go ahead and send that email automatically so that it goes out. You don't even have to worry about it. So to that end, we created the strategies. And the strategy allows an admin user, without knowing any programming language, to set up the system to automate the process of the strategy. You can have as many strategies as you want. Each strategy can have as many steps as you want, and they can be as complicated or as simple as you need them to be. So in this simple strategy here, the first step says if days past due is greater than 0 and it's less than 11, then I want to send the first reminder letter to the AP contact of the customer. So all of these are drop downs. You can choose different options here. So you can do it based on days past due or balance or due date or invoice amount. You can even do it based on unlimited user fields. So if there's things that matter to you that we don't have a field for out of the box with Collected, we can store that as a user field, and then you can use it in the strategy. But the way this first step would work is any invoice that goes past due the first day, the system's going to automatically create a reminder letter. That reminder letter is customizable by the user. They can set up standard letters. It'll drop in the customer's name, the invoice number that's past due, the amount. And then it'll look at the customer's contact preferences, and it'll send it via email, via fax server, or if you want it printed out and sent regular mail, it'll send to a print queue where you can print it out from there. So that's the first step in my strategy. The second step is if it hit 7 days and I still haven't been paid, I want it to create a task to do the first call to call on this invoice. So the task is going to go on my calendar or my task list or whatever users assigned to that account. And that task will stay there until either the user completes it or the invoice is paid. So you'll notice that I have this task set up to go onto the calendar 3 days before the due date. That allows me to put things on my users' calendars and task list ahead of time. If the invoice gets paid before that call is made, the system will automatically remove that task, so they're not calling on paid invoices. As I said, these strategy steps can be more complicated. So this third one has a couple different parameters. If I've hit 21 days past due and I don't have a promise to pay, so my invoice status is not promised to pay, then I want to send the second reminder letter. You'll also notice that I'm choosing the contact that I want to send these communications to. In this case, I'm sending the first two to the AP contact, but the third reminder letter is going to the AP and the CFO type contact if I have that for the customer. So it's going to escalate those letters. All right, in addition to creating tasks on my calendar or automatically sending letters, there's other things that I can do with the strategy. So I can automatically set the invoice status. So if there's statuses that I want to track and those are unlimited and customizable and creatable by the user, I can have that apply automatically. I can also set the customer status. So if I have a customer who is maybe over $10,000 and has some money in 30 days, I want to set their status to a warning status. That way, that just lets other people in the system know that that customer may be having issues. And then the last thing that we added a couple of years ago is the ability to send internal emails. So our system allows you to create users for people that aren't even in collections. And then the strategy will actually send them an email based on different parameters. So as a simple example for that, let's say you had a dispute status that was damaged items. The collector calls or receives an email that the customer is disputing it due to a shipment issue. They set the dispute status to shipping, and then the strategy can take over and actually send an internal email to the shipping department, letting them know that the customer's disputed this, and then they can actually start the resolution process and collect it if you want them to, just through that process. Same thing, if you had a pricing issue, you may send it to the salesperson. If you had a customer that was getting a very high balance, you may send that to the account management team to let them know what was going on. So there's different options that you can use for the internal emails. Alrighty, so the strategy, like I said, you can have as many strategies as you want. You can apply one or more strategies to customers. So if you have customers that you maybe deal with in different formats. So let's say you have a customer that buys from you for their retail chain and for their wholesale distribution business. And you may collect completely different from them based on the type of invoice or the type of goods. You can actually create that strategy and that process here. So the idea here is that you create the strategy and you know what process your invoices are going through to get collected, and it's consistent. So then your customers know, okay, XYZ company, every time I go a day late, I get a letter. If I go 7 days late, I'm going to get a call. And that may help some of your invoice kind of filter up to the top of that payment just so they can avoid those calls and all that information. So again, it's that consistent strategy information. So once I have my strategies in place, and these run every day, and they create my tasks and send my email reminders and internal emails, my day-to-day life as a user is I log in to the system and I go to my calendar or my task list, depending on how I like to work, and I look at what the system has set up for me to do. So these are where all my tasks are going to appear that were created by the strategy. This is also where tasks will appear that if they were assigned to me by another user. So perhaps I'm a supervisor user. I could have one of my associates put a task on my calendar to do an account review. Or maybe I'm in the legal department and I get a task that says, hey, you need to prep this account for legal action. And that's all going to appear here in the calendar. So again, I have the many-to-many reporting relationship. So I can see all of my tasks. I can also see anybody who reports to me, their tasks. Anything in red is past due. And I can keep track of that if I'm in a supervisor role. Now, once I'm ready to actually work on a task or to address an account, I just double click, again, making this as easy to use as possible. And this brings up my customer information screen. So the idea here was to put as much information as you might possibly need to work with a customer on collections in one screen, but still make it easy to use. So we've divided it up into a couple panes. On the left-hand side is kind of the static information about the customer. So this is where you're going to see their demographics, their contact names, phone numbers, addresses, website. You'll see their balance, totals, the last payment date, the last payment amount. We have some details that you can track about credit score. We have a credit rating system that ranks your customers based on average days to pay versus the rest of your customer base. I can see their credit limit, their sales territory. This is also where I can do a couple of things to maybe take this customer out of the normal process for a while. So if I have security, I can set up this customer to be opted out of whatever strategies that are applied to them. So maybe salesperson contacts me and says, listen, I'm working with this customer, but I just need a week for, just don't contact him. Don't do anything with him for a week until I get this worked out. So you can mark them as opt out, and then it's not going to send them anything automatic while that is checked. If you want to go one step further, you can actually mark them as cease and desist. Cease and desist takes them out of the strategy, and it also marks them as, it gives a pop-up. So if the user tries to do something manually to that customer record, a little pop-up will come up and say, hey, this customer's marked as cease and desist. Are you sure you want to continue? That's good for customers that may go into bankruptcy or something like that where you're legally not supposed to be contacting them. Then you can mark that as cease and desist and prevent those contacts. Like I said, we have unlimited user fields. User fields can be set up at the customer level, the invoice transaction level, or at the payment transaction level. A user field can be text, it can be a checkbox, it can be a date, it can be a dollar amount, it can be a hyperlink to a website or a document management system, or it can also be a file attachment. So if you have perhaps a credit application that you attach to all your customers, you can put that here in a user field and it can be viewed. And then remember, you can also use these user fields in strategies. So you could have the strategy vary the action based on whether you'd receive the credit application or maybe even how old the credit application is. All of that can be controlled through the strategy. We assign accounts to collectors. All this does is it tells the system, if you're creating a task for this account, this is the user that should receive that task on their calendar or task list. Doesn't mean that other users can't see the accounts, doesn't mean that they can't make notes and work the account if they need to. It's just a way to get those tasks onto somebody's calendar or task list. If you have security, you can also reassign accounts one by one or in groups. One of the nice things we added is we actually have temporary reassignment. So a temporary reassignment allows you to take one account or a range of accounts and temporarily reassign them to another user. And then when the due date comes around, it'll assign it back to the original collector that was on that account. So this is good when you have collectors that go out on vacation, FMLA, something like that. You want to make sure that their tasks and their accounts don't get missed. Then you can actually set that up to move that over to another user for the week they're gone, and then it'll automatically go back when they return. All right, on the right-hand side, we're going to come back to this window in a second. I can see a quick aging of all the transactions by transaction. I can see all the paid invoices for this customer. If I click on the little blue arrow next to it, I can see the payment transaction that actually paid that invoice. And then I can do it the reverse way. I can see all the payments, and then I can see the transactions that were paid with that payment. I can manage contacts inside to collect it. So these contacts can come from my ERP system, from Sage 300 or anywhere else through the integration, or I can actually create and maintain them right here. My contacts basically consist of a contact name, a phone number, email address, and then I can have different types of contacts. Remember, if I want to control who I'm sending different letters to. I can store bank information about the customer. If you have that ability, and especially if you do wires out of customers' accounts, you can store that all here. We also keep a complete history of everything that happens on an account. All right, this history stays here even after the invoices are paid. And this history includes everything the user does to the account. It also includes anything that the system does automatically through the strategy. So if the system sends an email through the strategy, it's going to insert a history record. Again, this grid format is all customizable by the user, sortable, filterable, and so you can get down to exactly the information if you want to look at history on even paid invoices. We also do payment plans. So payment plans are usually the dirty little secret of all companies. Everybody likes to say they don't do payment plans, but if they have to, they will. So we allow you to set up a payment plan very simply in our system. You go in and you choose the invoices that you want to put on the customer's payment plan. So I can choose these 4 invoices, and I can say they're going to make me 12 payments, and they're going to make a payment every month. So the system will create a schedule and an amount payable each month so that they can meet that payment schedule. And then once I save that payment schedule, the system will monitor and it'll watch for these payment amounts to come in. If any of these payments are missed, so if I have not received at least $375.34 by October 12th, the system will automatically put a task on my collector's task list for this account as a missed payment plan so they can call and see where the payment is that was due. So nobody likes to do payment plans, but we've set it up where they're at least easy to set up and then easy for the system to keep track of so you don't have to remember to go back and make sure the customer is actually making their payments. All right, so back on my customer here. So the first thing you'll notice is these 3 checkboxes are checked under the Unpaid Invoices tab. And that's because I came from my calendar here, and these were the invoices that were on my task to call them about today. So that doesn't mean I can't call them about other invoices. I can add other invoices to that. If I highlight an invoice, I see a lot of information here in the grid. And again, I can move these fields around. If I wanted the invoice date to be over here, I can move it over here and the system will save it that way. I also see down below that all the actions that have taken place on this account for this invoice to get collected. So I've made several calls on this account. I've sent several reminder letters. I've had people review this account. I have notes here about the account and the actions that I've taken. We store notes at 3 different levels in the system. So we have customer notes, notes in general about the customer. Hey, these are nice guys, et cetera, et cetera. We have invoice notes, which are notes about a transaction that are not necessarily related to collections. So this was a special deal, this was a one-time purchase, anything you want to store in there to remind you about this, this transaction. And then we have work notes, and the work notes are the notes about the interactions that you have with the customer trying to collect on this invoice. So a work note will show up here once an action has been completed or saved, or anytime the system makes an automatic action based on the strategy. I can also see quickly here any payments they've made against this invoice, if it's a partially paid invoice. And again, I have user fields here if I want to have any user fields on that invoice. All right, so I'm ready to call this customer. I go ahead and I click Work Invoices. This lets the system know that I'm starting to complete the action that was on my calendar. The system's telling me that I need to make call 2. So I call and I get a hold of Bob Fitz, and I choose him as the contact that I talk to. Now we have a couple things that are unique to our system. The first one is we allow you to store standard responses and then select them from a list. You can set these up. They're optional. You don't have to use them. You can add any standard response you want. But these are good for a few different reasons. So first of all, the number one response that everybody receives when you make a collection call is, yeah, I don't have that invoice. Can you send me a copy? So I could create a standard response that says needs duplicate invoices. By doing that, it has a few advantages. So the first advantage is I don't have to type in that note over and over and over again, needs copy of invoice, needs copy of invoice. I can just choose that response. So it saves me some typing time. But it also keeps it in a standard format. So I may write needs duplicate invoice. Somebody else may write send a copy. And all of that means the same thing, but it's not reportable at all because it's not in a standard format. So by using these standard responses, I have the ability to have everything in a standard format, and I can get some reports. So I could look at this customer and say, you know what, 98% of the time that I call them for the first time, they tell me they need a copy of the invoice. Maybe I'm not sending the invoice to the right place when we first send it, or maybe there's something else going on that I need to drill into. The third thing that I can do with the responses, which is a little bit more advanced, and it's not something you probably do right out of the box, but you can actually use the responses and when they're available to help guide your collectors when they're on the phone. So if I'm making the third collection call on this invoice, and again, all these actions are customizable. You don't have to have call 1, call 2, call 3. You can set up whatever actions you want. But let's say you're in an escalated action at this point. You're on call 3 or 6 or 8 or whatever it is. You may not allow the standard response of needs duplicate invoice at that time. At that point, you've probably sent them the invoice 6, 8, 10 times. You want to have that collector dig in a little bit deeper and say, okay, what's really going on here? I need something more than you just need a copy of the invoice. And so you can control what responses are available for each different type of action. And that'll help kind of guide your collectors down that path that you want them to take to get collections done on that invoice. All right, we also have statuses that you can set up. And again, these are optional. The statuses can be applied to all the invoices that you're calling on or individual ones. The statuses are all customizable. You can make them whatever you want. If you choose a dispute type status, then the system's going to open up the dispute dropdown, and you can choose the dispute reason. And remember, again, I can drive strategy and workflow off of that dispute reason also. So I could say that they claim it was damaged. All right. Now I have the ability here, if I want to set up the next action. Most of the time, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to let the strategy continue on and set up the next action. But if I wanted to, and I needed somebody else to take a look at this account, I could set it up for an account review. And maybe I would assign that to the legal department. I want them to take a look at the legal department because I think we're about to have to file suit on this one. And I can put a date on there and say I need them to look at it next Friday by 2 o'clock. All right. So again, you may also put an action of account review and leave it for yourself. So if they tell you, hey, yep, I'm gonna pay that by next Wednesday, put an action on there to review it next Thursday and see if they actually did pay it. Now there's another way you can do that. You can actually set up a payment plan with a single payment for that payment that they promised. And then if they miss it, the system will automatically tell you, hey, they missed the payment they told you they were gonna make. So, but you can use that next action date if you want to. If I'm on the phone with the customer, I can record any notes I want here. I can write paragraphs if I want to. It's an unlimited field. I can also send them communications right while I'm on the phone. So if they say, hey, I need a copy of this invoice, I say, no problem. I click send letter, and I'm going to bring up my letter templates here. and I have a standard letter that I have used for reminder letter 1. You'll notice that it dropped in the customer's number, name, their address, the contact that I'm talking to from the action that I'm taking, the invoice numbers, the dates, the total amount that's due. I can include copies of the invoice. So with your Sage 300 system, we can pull the copies directly from there and attach them to this email. We can also include a copy of the statement if you want to. And I can just click send, and this takes a minute because I'm on a virtual machine. But that's going to grab those invoice copies. It's going to take this letter, put this letter in an email, and it's going to send it out to the customer immediately. So right while you're on the phone with Bob, you can say, hey, Bob, yep, let me get those invoices to you. I just sent you the email. Can you confirm you have them? And then you can make a note that Bob said, yes, I actually did receive them this time. So when you call Bob for the 3rd time and he says he didn't get the invoices, you can say, no, Bob, we talked. You had them last time we talked. All right. One of the nice things about the way we record those history records is you'll notice when I complete this action and I go back and look at these 4 transactions, I'm actually going to have 2 history records on these 4 transactions. I'm going to have one history record that I made the call to Bob, and then I'm going to have another history record that I sent him copies of the invoices. All right. Now I'm going to minimize this for a second and just jump over and show you what that looks like in my email here. So this is the email that just came in. You'll see that the body of the email was that letter template that I created. It has my name, rep 1, my email address if I wanted it to right there. And then I have all the invoices attached as PDFs here across the top, and a copy of the statement as a PDF also, if I want to see that. And so I can send that to Bob and let him know all the invoices that he owes. All right, so back in collected, I'm going to go on ahead and say that I have completed this task. This is nice because if I call and I didn't really complete what I needed to do, maybe I couldn't get a hold of them, I can make a note that I called and left the message, but not complete the task, and it'll stay on my task list. If I complete it, it's going to move it off my task list. So I'm going to go ahead and say that I completed it. I'm going to save it. Now I'm going to go back to the customer's main screen here, and you'll see that I have several notes, but I have 2 here. I did call 2. There was a dispute. It was assigned to the legal department, and Bob got the invoices. And then the second one here is the letter that I sent Bob with the invoices attached, so I can see that he actually did receive the invoices that time. All right, and that'll just keep accumulating until we get those invoices paid off based on the strategies and the actions. Okay, so that's pretty much the day in the life of the collector. So if I'm just an end user, I come back to my calendar task list again then. That task has been checked off the list, and I go in and I start finding my next task that I want to work on. And that's the way my system, the process goes. One of the other things that you'll notice is as I was opening accounts here, they're just opening tabs across the top. So going back to that ease of use, if I'm working on this because it's on my task list and another customer calls me, I have the ability to just open up. Let's say Bob calls me back from Aaron Fitz. I say, no problem, Bob, hold on, let me get your account open here. I can open that up as a separate tab. I can move back and forth between these. I can make whatever notes I need to do with Bob here on the phone, and then I can go back and continue working on Adam Park. So I can open as many of those tabs as I want across the top. We also have an incoming email functionality. So if you receive an email we have an Outlook plugin that you can attach that email to a customer and a customer transaction, and it'll bring the body of the email automatically into the collected system as a note attached to that account. So you can capture those emails without having to copy paste and bring them in. Alrighty, so that's the kind of the day in the life and an overview summary. I see we have a couple questions. I'll kind of turn it back over to Stephen if he wants to kind of lead the questions, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. Thanks, Todd. Yeah, we did have a few questions come in. Again, the chat option is open, so feel free to ask any question. The first question that we do have is there a way to exclude specific customers or customer groups from receiving the automated emails?
Yes, absolutely. So there's a couple different ways that you can do that. First of all, you can just not assign them a strategy at all. So if they have no strategies assigned, they're never going to receive anything automated out of the system. You can also, if you wanted to control that customer, they could have their own strategy. So you can set up multiple strategies, and you could say this customer never gets anything automatic, but every time an invoice goes 1 day past due, I want to look at the account. And it'll put a task on my calendar, but it's never going to send them anything automatic. And then, like I mentioned on a customer, you can also choose to opt them out of the strategy. If you want a short term, just have nothing go to them nothing automatic come out of the system, you can opt them out. And then you'll know that nothing is going to go via email or fax or printed letter to them through the strategy.
Great. The second question is, what does the implementation process look like, and how long does it take?
Sure. So implementation is pretty quick. Like I said, one of our basic foundations was to make this easy to use. Our standard training for an end user in Collected is about 2 hours. For an admin, they get 2 hours of end user training and then 2 hours of admin training. So, and the admin training includes the ability to set up users, do security roles, create letter templates, and work on strategies. So, typical implementation chronologically is usually a couple weeks. It just depends on the amount of training sessions that we do and then how complex the strategies are. We really push for kind of a walk before you run process. So if we'd rather you set up a simple strategy that everybody understands and you know it's solid and it's going to work, than to have something so complex that people don't understand it and therefore don't trust it. So we set up a couple simple strategies. We get used to the system. If you are in any way concerned about the system sending emails automatically to your customers, we can set up the emails to be tasks instead of automatic events. If we do that, then the user has to pull up the task and say, yes, I absolutely want to send this email. And we have a lot of customers that in the early days, that's the way they want it to work. They're just not comfortable having the system send things automatically. So we set it all up as tasks. And then about a week later, they call and say, whoa, I don't want to do that anymore. All I'm doing is clicking, yes, I want to send that email. So let's convert over to events and have it go out automatically.
Awesome. Looks like we have one more question that came in. It says, what if I have other documents I want to send with the invoice?
Sure. So we have done integrations with several different document management systems. We are happy to use something we built in the past or customize something directly. If you have supporting documents that are outside of your ERP system, we can usually connect to that and get those PDFs, spreadsheets, anything else attached to that email so it goes out to the customer. We have trucking companies where we do a lot of bill of lading information, signed delivery tickets, and all of that goes with the invoice when they send the collection letter. And in one case, it's coming from 4 different source systems, and we're combining all that documentation, and it's going out on a single email. So.
Awesome, thanks. I think for now, we'll wrap it up. We do have a question about price that I'll go ahead and take offline. So again, guys, thank you. If you have any more additional questions, please reach out to the account management team, which is am@acumenfl.com, or give us a call, 407-965-2411. Again, you can also follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. This YouTube video, too, will also be posted on our YouTube channel, this webinar. So I would also follow up, too, with the attendees, so you guys make sure you guys send that to the rest of your employees. Again, thanks, Todd. Thanks again for everyone who joined. Hope you guys have a great rest of the week.
Thank you.
Have a good one.